My name is Ethan Brooks. I'm 28 years old, and for the past 4 years, I've been grinding away at Sterling Capital Group, a boutique investment firm tucked into a gleaming high-rise in downtown Seattle. It's the kind of place where everyone wears tailored suits and discusses market volatility over artisan coffee. But for someone like me, it's just a job. A place where I show up early, stay late when needed, and keep my head down. I'm not the guy who speaks up in partner meetings or schmoozes at networking events. I'm the one who listens, takes detailed notes, and makes sure the numbers add up perfectly. If you asked my colleagues about me, they'd probably say I'm dependable but forgettable, just another face in a company full of ambitious climbers. My life outside work isn't much more exciting. I rent a small one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, the kind with creaky hardwood floors and a view of the building next door. Weekends are for catching up on sleep, maybe grabbing drinks with a couple of old college friends, or occasionally driving out to visit my dad's grave in Bellevue. He passed away last year, heart attack, sudden and devastating. He was only 58. Growing up, I was always the quiet kid in class. My mom died when I was 10, cancer that came swift and merciless. 2 years later, Dad remarried Victoria Chin. She was 24 then, brilliant and ambitious, with degrees from Stanford and Wharton. I was 12 and resentful, seeing her as an interloper trying to replace Mom. She never pushed, never tried to play mother. She treated me with polite distance, focusing on building her career while Dad tried to hold our fractured family together. Now, at 36, Victoria is a legend at Sterling Capital. She made partner at 32, the youngest in the firm's history. She manages billion-dollar portfolios for tech executives and old-money families with surgical precision. Sharp as a blade and unflinchingly decisive, she's always in immaculate tailored suits, usually charcoal or navy, that make her look ready for a boardroom battle. Her reputation precedes her. No small talk, no wasted words, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. We've worked at the same firm for 2 years now, an arrangement that's been professionally awkward but manageable. We barely interact beyond the occasional nod in the hallway or my brief status updates in group emails. The shared history, her marriage to my father, his death, the inheritance complications, hangs between us like a wall neither of us acknowledges. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I was nursing my second coffee in our main conference room, scrolling through market reports on my tablet while waiting for the weekly strategy meeting to start. The room buzzed with the usual low chatter, people complaining about portfolio rebalancing deadlines or discussing the Seahawks game. I tuned it out, focusing on a risk assessment model I'd been refining for the Meridian project, a massive potential deal involving portfolio restructuring for a tech billionaire worth $2.3 billion. The door swung open abruptly, and in walked Victoria. She moved with purpose, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Dropping a leather portfolio onto the conference table, she scanned the room with those intense dark eyes that seemed to calculate everything instantly. Meridian project. 5-day trip to San Francisco starting Thursday morning. I need someone to join me. The room went quiet. Marcus Webb, our senior portfolio manager, a polished veteran in his mid-40s with perfectly styled gray hair and an ego to match, leaned forward immediately. Victoria, if you need support, I'd be happy to step in myself. Or I can assign one of my senior analysts. Someone with the experience to handle these high-stakes negotiations with a client of this magnitude. Victoria didn't even glance at him. Her gaze landed squarely on me, steady and unreadable. I've already decided. Ethan Brooks will accompany me. A ripple of surprise went through the room. I felt my face heat up as heads turned my way. Me? I'd contributed some risk models to the preliminary analysis. Sure, but nothing groundbreaking. I was still junior level, hardly the obvious choice for a $2.3 billion deal. Marcus's eyebrows shot up, his expression flickering between surprise and indignation. Ethan? With all due respect, Victoria, he's still relatively junior. Barely 4 years in, no major deals closed independently. We can't risk fumbling something of this magnitude. She finally turned to face him, her voice calm but edged like steel. I'm selecting based on actual capability, Marcus. Ethan's risk assessment models were the most sophisticated in the preliminary analysis. His projections on cryptocurrency hedge strategies were more innovative than anything your team produced. That's what we need for Meridian: innovation and precision, not just seniority and hand-holding. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but Victoria raised a hand, ending the discussion with the finality of a judge's gavel. The decision is made. Meeting adjourned. As we filed out, I caught sidelong glances from my coworkers, some curious, others openly skeptical. Even Derek, the guy I sometimes grabbed lunch with, shot me a look that said, "What the hell just happened?" The whispers started immediately, hushed voices speculating about nepotism, about the stepmother-stepson dynamic, about whether I'd actually earned this or if family obligation was at play. Victoria caught me at the door, handing over the leather portfolio. Her expression was all business, no trace of the personal history between us. Review the financial projections and contingency strategies in detail. We fly out Thursday at 8 a.m. I don't tolerate delays or incomplete preparation. She strode off without another word, leaving me standing there with the portfolio feeling heavier than it should. Back at my desk, I flipped through the pages, my mind racing in a dozen directions. Why me? The uncomfortable truth was that our family connection made this deeply complicated. Colleagues would assume favoritism. They'd whisper that I was riding on Dad's legacy, on Victoria's guilt or obligation. Part of me swelled with pride. This could be my break, my chance to prove I belonged here on my own merit. But doubt crept in like fog rolling off Elliott Bay. What if Marcus was right? What if I wasn't ready? What if I screwed up and confirmed every suspicion that I didn't deserve to be here? That afternoon blurred into a frenzy of preparation. I double-checked every projection, rehearsed potential questions from James Huang's team, and ran through mock scenarios until my eyes burned. By evening, I was exhausted but wired on coffee and adrenaline. Dinner was a sad desk sandwich while I refined my presentation notes. Lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, sleep evaded me completely. My thoughts looped endlessly. The stares in the meeting, Marcus's condescension, Victoria's unwavering confidence in me, or was it obligation to Dad's memory? What if this trip was a test I wasn't prepared for? Success could change everything, prove I belonged in this world on my own terms. Failure might confirm every insecurity I'd buried since childhood. Eventually, I drifted into restless sleep, my suitcase already packed by the door, ready for whatever came next. Little did I know, the real challenge wouldn't be the $2.3 billion deal. It would be 5 days trapped with Victoria, forcing us to confront everything we'd spent years carefully avoiding. Thursday morning arrived with typical Seattle gloom, heavy clouds threatening rain. I met Victoria at the airport at 7 a.m., both of us carrying efficient carry-on luggage and laptops. She was already on her phone, firing off emails, barely acknowledging my arrival beyond a curt nod. We moved through security in silence, the awkwardness of our situation hanging between us like static electricity. The flight was supposed to be straightforward. A quick 2-hour hop down the coast to San Francisco, landing mid-morning with plenty of time to check into our hotel and prep for Friday's meeting. But nothing about that day went according to plan. As we sat at the gate, the first delay announcement crackled over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, due to heavy fog in the San Francisco Bay Area, our departure has been delayed by approximately 90 minutes. Victoria barely reacted, just opened her laptop and continued working. I pulled out my tablet, reviewing the Meridian materials for what felt like the 100th time, but my concentration was shot. The tension of the past 2 days, the whispers at the office, the weight of expectations, the complicated history between us, pressed down on me. The delays kept coming. 30 minutes became 2 hours, then 4. The fog in San Francisco was apparently unprecedented, grounding everything. The gate area filled with frustrated travelers, business types pacing with phones pressed to their ears, families trying to entertain restless children. Victoria made several calls, her voice low and authoritative as she rescheduled logistics with James Huang's team, pushing our preliminary meeting to Friday afternoon. Coffee, I offered, standing up to stretch my legs. She glanced up, her expression softening almost imperceptibly. Black. Thank you. I returned with 2 overpriced airport coffees, and we sipped in silence. It was the most normal interaction we'd had in months, maybe years. No business discussion, no family history, just 2 tired people stuck in an airport. We finally boarded around 2 p.m., 6 hours behind schedule. The flight itself was smooth, but by the time we landed at San Francisco Airport, it was after 4 p.m. and the fog still clung to the city like a shroud. The airport was chaos. Delayed flights, rerouted passengers, every hotel shuttle packed beyond capacity. Victoria was already on her phone as we collected our bags, scrolling through booking apps with increasing frustration. The tech conference, she muttered. Everything's completely booked. I pulled up my own search. Hotel after hotel showed the same message. No availability. The few places with rooms were charging $800 plus per night for basic accommodations, clearly price gouging the desperate. Try the harbor inn near the airport, I suggested, remembering it from a previous trip. It's not fancy, but it's usually reliable. Victoria called, and I watched her expression shift from hope to resignation. She put the phone on speaker. Yes, ma'am, we have 1 room left. Queen bed, though we can provide extra blankets and pillows. It's $220 for the night. Victoria didn't hesitate, though I saw something flicker across her face. Book it. We'll be there within the hour. The Uber ride through fog-wrapped streets was tense. Neither of us addressed the obvious issue, 1 room. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur through the mist, my mind racing through the implications. This would fuel every rumor back at Sterling. 1 room, stepmother and stepson. The gossip would be merciless. The Harbor Inn was a modest chain hotel, its exterior lit by muted neon in the foggy darkness. The lobby was small and tired-looking, with worn carpets and a yawning night clerk who barely looked up as he processed Victoria's credit card. Room 318. Elevators to your right. Sorry about the accommodation shortage. This conference has the whole city packed. We rode the elevator in suffocating silence. Victoria's jaw was set, her eyes fixed on the floor numbers ticking upward. I kept my gaze on my shoes, my heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and something else I couldn't quite name. The room was smaller than I'd hoped. Beige walls with faded coastal prints, a queen bed dominating the space, a small love seat shoved in the corner that looked about 4 feet long, and a cramped bathroom with harsh fluorescent lighting. The fog pressed against the window, obscuring any view. Victoria set down her bag with a controlled exhale. She turned to face me, her expression unreadable but her posture rigid. The hotel has only 1 room. My face flushed hot. The absurdity and awkwardness of the situation crashed over me. I'll sleep outside the room. The hallway, the lobby, I don't care. This is inappropriate. Don't be ridiculous, she said, her tone flat and businesslike, though I detected a hint of strain underneath. There's a couch. We're adults with a $2.3 billion deal tomorrow. We need to be professional and well-rested. Get over it. She immediately began unpacking her things with efficient movements, hanging up her suit for tomorrow, organizing her materials on the small desk. I stood frozen for a moment, then grabbed the spare blankets from the closet and claimed the love seat, which was laughably small for my 6-foot frame. Bathroom's yours first, Victoria said without looking at me, her fingers already flying across her laptop keyboard. I nodded, grabbing my toiletry bag and escaping into the bathroom. Under the hot shower, I let the water stream over me, trying to process the situation. This was a nightmare. Not just the sleeping arrangement, but everything it represented: years of careful distance, of professional boundaries, of unspoken family complications, all compressed into this tiny hotel room. When I emerged in sweats and a t-shirt, Victoria barely glanced up from her work. I arranged myself on the love seat, which was even more uncomfortable than it looked. My legs dangled off the end, the armrest dug into my back, and the cushions were lumpy and worn. But I was determined to make it work. I pulled out my tablet, pretending to review notes, though my focus was completely shot. Victoria disappeared into the bathroom, and I heard the shower running for a long time. When she emerged, she was in yoga pants and an oversized Stanford sweatshirt, her usually immaculate hair damp and loose around her shoulders. It was jarring. I'd never seen her look so human. Less the intimidating partner, more like an actual person. She glanced at my awkward position on the love seat, her expression softening slightly. That can't possibly be comfortable. I'm fine, I lied, shifting to avoid the armrest jabbing into my ribs. She climbed into the bed on the far side, propping up pillows to work on her tablet. The room fell into tense silence, broken only by the hum of the heating unit and the occasional tap of her screen. I tried to sleep. I really did. But the love seat was torture. My mind wouldn't stop racing, and the awareness of Victoria just 10 feet away made everything feel surreal. An hour passed, maybe more. I shifted positions constantly, trying to find something tolerable. Around 3 a.m., her voice cut through the darkness, soft but clear. Ethan, you're not sleeping. I can hear you shifting every 2 minutes. I froze. I'm fine. Just adjusting. A long pause hung in the air, heavy with unspoken things. Then, quietly, do you know why I chose you for this trip? I sat up in the darkness, my heart suddenly pounding for different reasons. I could barely make out her silhouette against the dim light filtering through the curtains. Honestly, I thought maybe you felt obligated. Because of Dad. Because of family guilt or responsibility or something. Your father has nothing to do with this. Her voice was sharp, almost cutting. Then it softened. That's what everyone will think, I know. But in meetings, you're the only one who challenges my models without ego. You see patterns others miss. Your cryptocurrency hedge strategy was genuinely innovative. Marcus would have just recycled conventional wisdom. Silence settled between us again, but it felt different now. Less awkward, more expectant. Then she continued, her voice dropping lower, more vulnerable than I'd ever heard it. I grew up in Taipei until I was 12. My parents were both academics, demanding, perfectionist. When we immigrated here, I had to be perfect at everything just to keep up. Perfect English, perfect grades, perfect career. I built walls because showing weakness meant failing, and failure meant disappointing everyone. I listened, transfixed. This was a Victoria I'd never known existed. Your father. She paused, and I heard her breath catch slightly. He was the first person who saw through those walls, who made me feel like I didn't have to be perfect every second. After he died, I reinforced everything. Work became all I had. My throat tightened. After Mom died, I felt like I'd lost my place in the world. Then you arrived, and I was 12 and angry, and I saw you as a replacement. Someone trying to take her place. I've spent years trying to prove I'm not just riding Dad's legacy, that I deserve to be where I am on my own merit. We both have, she whispered. The fog outside seemed to press closer, cocooning us in this strange intimacy. For the first time in years, maybe ever, we were just two people, not stepmother and stepson, not partner and junior analyst, just two people shaped by loss and expectations. Morning arrived with pale light filtering through the fog-shrouded window. I woke to find the love seat empty beside me. At some point during the night, exhaustion had finally won and I'd passed out in that cramped, uncomfortable position. My neck ached and my back felt like it had been twisted into knots. Victoria was already up, dressed in her sharp charcoal suit. Her hair pulled back into that severe bun that screamed executive armor. The vulnerability from 3 hours ago had vanished completely, replaced by the polished, untouchable partner I knew from the office. Morning, I said, my voice rough with sleep. I sat up, rubbing my neck. What time is it? 7:30. We have breakfast reservations downstairs at 8. Then the car arrives at 9:15. She didn't look up from her tablet, her fingers scrolling through what looked like market reports. Shower quickly. We need to be sharp. The shift in her demeanor was jarring but not unexpected. Whatever we'd shared in the darkness, that raw honesty, those vulnerable confessions, seemed to have been sealed away with the sunrise. I grabbed my clothes and headed to the bathroom, the hot water doing little to ease the knot of confusion in my chest. By the time I emerged, dressed in my best navy suit and trying to look more confident than I felt, Victoria was waiting by the door, her leather portfolio in hand. We rode the elevator down in silence, grabbed a quick breakfast of coffee and pastries without much conversation, and climbed into the town car that would take us to Meridian Tower. San Francisco gleamed in the post-fog morning light as we drove through the financial district. The city felt alive with possibility and danger in equal measure. Victoria reviewed talking points on her tablet while I stared out the window, my mind racing through scenarios, projections, potential questions from James Huang's team. Meridian Tower was a stunning glass structure in Soma, all sleek lines and reflective surfaces that seemed to capture and multiply the morning sun. We were ushered through a lobby that looked like a modern art museum and up to the 42nd floor, where James Huang's team waited in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge and the bay beyond. James Huang himself was there, a tech billionaire in his early 50s who'd made his fortune in cloud infrastructure and was now worth an estimated $4.7 billion. He wore expensive casual clothes, jeans and a cashmere sweater, the uniform of Silicon Valley wealth. Flanking him were his CFO, a sharp woman named Diana Reeves, his chief legal counsel, and two financial advisors who looked like they could smell weakness from a mile away. Handshakes all around. Brief pleasantries about the weather, the fog, the beauty of the view. Then Victoria got down to business with the efficiency of a surgeon making the first incision. "Thank you for meeting with us, James. As you know, Sterling Capital specializes in portfolio optimization for high-net-worth individuals navigating complex market conditions. What we're proposing for your $2.3 billion portfolio is a comprehensive restructuring that addresses three critical concerns: cryptocurrency exposure volatility, sustainable tech investment opportunities, and tax-efficient wealth preservation strategies." She clicked through slides on the massive screen, each one a masterpiece of data visualization. Market trends, risk assessments, projected returns. The room leaned in, absorbed. Victoria commanded attention effortlessly, her voice confident and clear, her arguments airtight. Then, about 15 minutes in, she turned to me with a seamless transition that still made my heart skip. "For the detailed portfolio optimization strategy and risk modeling, I'll hand it over to Ethan Brooks, our senior analyst on this project." Every eye in the room shifted to me. Diana Reeves, the CFO, looked skeptical. I could see it in the slight narrowing of her eyes, the way she leaned back in her chair as if preparing to poke holes in whatever I said. My mouth went dry for just a second, but then something clicked. The sleepless night, the conversation in the dark, the weight of proving myself. It all crystallized into focus. I stood, clicked to my section of the presentation, and dove in. Building on Victoria's overview, let's examine the current portfolio composition and where we see opportunities for optimization. Currently, you're holding approximately 18% in cryptocurrency assets, primarily Bitcoin and Ethereum. While this has generated significant returns over the past 3 years, the volatility index on these holdings is concerning, particularly given recent regulatory developments. I walked them through my analysis, pulling up charts that showed volatility patterns, regulatory risk factors, and projected market corrections. Then I pivoted to the solution. What we're proposing is a strategic rebalancing. We reduce crypto exposure to 8%, reallocating that capital into 3 areas. Sustainable energy infrastructure, which is experiencing massive growth due to new federal incentives. AI and machine learning companies with proven revenue models, not just speculative valuations, and a diversified bond portfolio for stability. James Huang leaned forward, his expression interested but challenging. 8% seems conservative. Crypto has been my best performer. Why would I cut that in half? I didn't hesitate, because past performance in a speculative asset class doesn't predict future returns, especially in an increasingly regulated environment. The SEC is tightening oversight, and several countries are implementing restrictions. What we're seeing is a maturation of the market, which means the explosive growth period is likely behind us. 8% gives you continued exposure to potential upside while dramatically reducing your downside risk. Diana Reeves jumped in, her tone sharp. Your sustainable energy projections assume continued federal support. What happens if the political landscape changes and those incentives disappear? This was the question I'd prepared for, the one I'd rehearsed a dozen times. Excellent point. That's why our models include 3 scenarios: optimistic with full incentive support, baseline with partial support, and pessimistic with 0 support. Even in the pessimistic scenario, sustainable energy shows positive returns because the underlying economics, declining production costs, increasing efficiency, rising energy demand, are fundamentally sound. The incentives accelerate growth, but they're not the foundation. I clicked through the scenario models, showing projected returns under each condition. The numbers were solid, conservative, but compelling. Victoria caught my eye and gave the slightest nod, approval, or maybe just acknowledgement that I was holding my own. For the next 40 minutes, we